All right, we are live. You know what time it is. It is Lessons Learned Along the Way. And this week we have another special guest. I know we started season 2 of Lessons Learned Along the Way. So we're trying to diversify our guests. This week we have I would say, a doctor in his field, doctor of pharmacy in, I would say, what would you say?
Uh,
Pharmaceutical,
just
chemical.
doctor, just pharmaceutical chemistry,
Yeah,
pharmaceutical science. Um,
yes. And I I went to school with him. I mean, I played sports with him. He used to be an athlete, uh, rugby, high school
not,
champion. What you did you win the high school? Did you win the high school cup like
yeah,
back
I
back
did, I did.
in Budo? You know, high
Yeah,
school champion
Budo, I think we won it twice. I
twice.
think we won
Oh
it
wow.
twice. Yeah,
Yeah, and then we played together as teammates at my career college. That's back in like 2005. Yeah, 2005. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. Ronnie Ruyonga. Ronnie, what's up, man? How's it
oh,
going?
what's up? It's always good catching up with you. Um, it's been a long time coming, seeing us, seeing this podcast grow and seeing everything. I have to say congratulations to you on how far
Uh,
you've come.
I mean, thank you very much. This is just baby steps. Just moving step by step. Hopefully this leads us somewhere, and it's growing by the day. So Ronnie, do you mind sharing with the audience and the listenership, the viewership, your background, and pretty much what you do?
Mm. Well, my background is, I started out as, when I came to the US, my whole dream was to be in the medical field, right? It's actually a funny story. I had this whole dream of being a doctor, like a medical doctor. And, coming to this country and all, they sell the dream that, the American dream, you can be whatever you want to be. Now, coming here made me realize that there are some things that were just not for me. And one of them was paying. Yeah, like, just I took time to do an internship, kind of like see, can I handle this? And I know it sounds crazy, but the one thing that threw me off was blood. I was like, and it sounds really crazy, but it's true. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be a doctor. So I decided to look, kind of like do some soul searching and think about what interests you. And it so happened I was in school, and one of the professors put me in a lab, right? And a whole background, as you remember school back home.
Right.
One of the reasons I truly sympathize with these students at home, because you get to learn things theoretically,
Yeah.
but you're never able to see what you are learning.
Yeah, the kinesthetic part where you have to apply
It just
yourself.
finally clicked even before I was. It finally clicked, and it was such a big thing for me that I just then enjoyed being in a lab myself. So, going through that, going through my undergrad, going through, masters, and finishing my PhD and things like that is something that I could say, it, 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 it became easier once I could relate to what I was doing.
Right.
So then, fast forward right now, I work in the therapeutic field. Um, so what we're doing, especially during these times of COVID-19, many of you are going to hear therapeutic drugs. There are some therapeutic drugs that are already on the market that maybe some people can easily relate to. One of them is actually a vaccine that everyone is hyping around, that people didn't think had a lot of, that people thought had value, right?
Right.
Which was that Moderna drug, right?
Moderna, yeah.
It's called mRNA 173, something like that. And, that's an example of what I do. So
Yeah.
I'm a therapeutic scientist. Therapeutic drugs usually have RNA or DNA in them. And so there's synthesis of the DNA. Then they'll attach an API, an active pharmaceutical ingredient to it. That first work on the therapeutic side of it, which is like, the making of the DNA and RNA. That's it.
Wow. mean, that's very informative, especially during times like this. Quick question. So, with what you do you go through the whole process of mixing everything together, coming up with the chemical compound and then compounding it? What do you exactly do in that process of creating these therapeutic drugs?
Okay, so what usually happens is there's usually have some sort of RNA or DNA or
Okay.
whatever.
RNA or DNA, okay.
So these are things that are made synthetic. And
Yeah.
so you make it,
Oh wow.
and there are different stages because they're different. They're complex molecules that can have complex impurities. So
Mm,
then there's different stages, you know, where you need to protect the molecules, and such reactions can be driven in certain places
yeah.
where you need to then deprotect. There's different forms of purification that you need to do in order for you to get that fine-tuned neat molecule. Now, most of what I do is making that particular. It can be, however many base pairs. It can easily be 10 base pairs or 100 base pairs. The longer it is, of course, the more complex the molecule is, and they form these different structures, secondary structures. So the difficulty of dealing with the molecule comes with the composition and everything. But the different steps are: you do the synthesis, you do what we call a cleavage and deprotection, which includes very many removal of very many things, protecting groups. And I won't bore you with so many details. Then after you purify it, and then you literally get it ready, then what happens is that if it's your API, then you know what to attach it to. You have like already a synthesized active pharmaceutical ingredient that you can kind of like cultivate it to. And the reason why these drugs are becoming more and more important, right, is because whatever the DNA or RNA is, it can easily incorporate into the, you know, viruses, bacteria, and easily, stop specific pathways, as opposed to you having something invasive like a drug that you know is going to do something somewhere else. But these RNAs, they're not, RNA and DNA are not something that are foreigners to our bodies. These are things that our bodies can recognize. So it makes it's a double-edged sword because you can force certain mutations in certain things. That one is true. But if done correctly, it can be really, really promising.
That's very interesting. I'm a tech guy. I'm very tech, not too into. I mean, I need to get into the medical field and know more about the different nuances of medicine, whether it comes to actual being a practitioner or being in the pharmacy field where you're creating this medicine. One interesting thing that I found out recently, a few months ago, was the use of technology in finding uh, chemical genetic formation. I mean, chemical like RNA, like you could using algorithms where you put something inside a machine and it will trace it to the history of this type of disease. Do you guys use a lot of technology to trace
Um,
some of
yes. So there's different forms of screening, right? Like there are very many programs these days that are built. So they find, like, let's say, sequences that are susceptible, like let's say in a specific sequence of somebody or a patient or numerous patients, they can find different, um, they align the DNA, right? And then they say, okay, well, based on this sequence that we see from here to here, there's a chance that this is what's responsible for Alzheimer's. This is
right?
what's responsible for these different diseases out there. So yes, it's true. The medical field is evolving, and it's evolving really, really fast because of the need for it. And I think what people don't realize is in the US, the fact that again, I like to say this because it's a double-edged sword, right? The FDA is very, very, very meticulous about how you approve a drug. People will spend multitudes of money to approve a drug, and it may not even get approved, right? Because you get to all these different levels, and if it doesn't pass, then it's an end game. But the reason I say that, there's so much to it, and that screening is now coming into play, is you can then narrow down and say, based on probability or based on the probability of finding this particular chunk of DNA or something, or protein that fits, or peptide that will sit in certain active or active site, then you can then say, well, synthetically you can try out these different structures that will fit in the site. So it cuts the whole long game shorter.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with the process being, we found, let's say the vaccine of this and this, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the process of getting it approved, or how long does this process take, getting it approved by the CDC, the FDA? Is it strenuous? Is it how easy is that process, or how hard is that process?
So now what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a need for that process to be accelerated, right? So what the public is calling for as well was everyone, not only the public but also on our end, everyone is trying to jam these things down the FDA's throats, and because it's a monetary thing where there are 8 levels, right? It's 8, we'll call them, like phases. It's in phase 1 trials, phase 2 trials, and so on and so forth. But those trials usually take time. Now, the thing is, even the drugs that are on the market right now that they're using to treat COVID-19 are drugs that are in trials. I mean, that remdesivir that's being produced by Gilead, and then the other one, Regnenon, that is being used to treat the president right now. These are drugs that are in trials at Gilead. But because they've showed promise, and because of how long it actually takes to approve a drug, these drugs are being fished out before analyzing the full risk of the drug, because right now we're in dire times, right? But back to the question that you asked, how long? And some people take 8 years. But these drugs that you see on the market that are new, they have been, they've been trials for ages. And as much as people keep asking, what are you guys doing? People are expecting a process that was streamlined for 8 years or more to be streamlined within months. It's a very dangerous game. But of course, given what is going on right now, it's something that needs to be cut short and needs all hands to the pump so that we can get there.
Right. That's very. I can see why that process has been sped up, because of the dire needs of the masses and the current situation that we're in understanding that everything has its due process, and the streamlining of some of the previous drugs that are out there, and how they went through that process throughout, like you said, 8 years, and now how it's being. It makes sense to me now. Quick turn right here. So let's talk about the man, because I know we've talked about what you do, your occupation, and let's talk about the man, Ronnie. Like how do you just come from being this guy in Uganda, Kampala, and then you just pivot and then you find yourself in the States? Like, because I'll be honest, the reason why I came to the States was because of you. We have a mutual person, right? Connie Mutazindwa, right? And at that time, I think I was doing before I did my UNAIB, I think I did my SATs. My goal was to come here and play some rugby, because there were some schools that were just looking for just recruiting and promising in-state tuition or something like that, or some form of stipend where they give you something, and they'll pretty much they needed rugby players. And for some reason, that was the same bus that you were using. From appreciation, and I'm forever thankful for Connie, who used to work at the American Embassy, Education USA. So let's start that process, because we share that same process, but yours is a little bit different because your process was done a little earlier. So how did that pivot from a student athlete, or a prospective, or a prospectus, I don't know the real word, but So you're supposedly coming to the States to do sports.
And which I did.
So you've
I
joined.
did. Yeah, I did. I did. I played when I played rugby initially, because when I came here, as you said, it was quite challenging. There were a few prospects, but I first ended up in Santa Barbara, right? And because of there was and that helped me go to Arkansas where I ended up finishing stuff. But then initially I actually played for men's team, the Santa Barbara Grannies. I played for them as a club team, like when you're going to JC and things like that, as you're trying to figure things out. And then after that, I went to a more recognized program, which is Arkansas State, right? Arkansas State, the Red Wolves, there's Coach Matt Huckabee. These are people who they form. There's a lot. We're talking about lessons learned. That place has a lot of lessons for me because it's the brotherhood in that team that actually showed me that what there's a lot more to it than just coming and achieving. I formed some really good brothers there, all internationals. And so when I pivoted from there and I went to grad school and things like that, it helped. You can still go back to the same people, and you check on them, like, where are you guys heading and things like that. And you keep encouraging each other. Why? Because you're in the same team, you had the same struggles. If you run suicides, or we call them hundreds, in the Arkansas State field, and you've run them in that August sun of Arkansas, and you fall into the ground, all of you. There's something about that changes.
Some people throwing up in a corner over there in the bushes.
The ones who had those beers last night. So yeah, it's that path. And right now is also a good time, I think, to mention Auntie Connie, because to me she's actually my auntie. She is related to me on my dad's side. She's a person who I think made it clear to me that things in the US will not be easy, but you need to pull yourself by the bootstraps and like march on. So with her guidance, which was really some stern words, but real words. She's here right now. I think she's in Maryland. But every time I remember talking to her on the phone and things, because there are different challenges when you come here. You're trying to relate to the world in Uganda that you've left. Sometimes you don't go back home the way you want to, like every summer or things like that. You need to learn to pick up these jobs at a very young age at campus. And the worst thing I remember is working summer on campus, because the campus would be empty. All the kids would go to, they'd go back home, wherever they're from, but you can't go back home. And, it's when you look at those lessons of how those things kind of grew me, I'm actually very thankful, because that's when we come and go through this COVID, I know it's lockdown and things, right? But the mentality that I have is still the same mentality I had back then. Just, come to what we've done. And even though we're in isolation and things, it doesn't stop you from getting things done, because you were already in isolation from what you knew back home, right? So you just keep marching on. So that's kind of like my motivation for all this struggle.
I mean, yeah, and I would repeat that, I'm very grateful and appreciative of Auntie Connie, Connie Mutazindwa, for just at least being that person to give me that idea of a possibility, first of all, because it's a process, and going through that process with Education USA, where you sit down and your job every day is just to send out applications, and once you find where you want to go, it's that whole the mentoring, or that pep talk, or the lessons learned, or just sharing something that group of people, including myself, would share with you, just etiquette, how to act, how to what to expect, leaving the comfort of your country, or leaving the comfort of being around your people, to being this so-called legal alien in this country, that is here, to either study, do sports, or do whatever. And then even just like you said, transitioning to even coming here and learning even deeper lessons where you start to understand that uh, there has to be grit involved in something there, like because of knowing that everybody breaks off, they have homes to go back to, but is this your time, in your mind to like, now I could really work, or now I can maybe do summer school so I could get done with these stuff quick. I don't want to stay here because tuition is expensive as I don't want to cuss, but expensive as crap.
All that.
So in
That's
your head,
very true.
you want to express, you want to speed your way through stuff, which is a good or bad thing too, because you're not really getting that experience of college as most students, because you're coming in there you're like an assassin, you're there for a mission. You're in there like a sniper, you're not here to waste time. But also what can be said, you said this earlier about how you created bonds, relationships with some of your ex-teammates from the Razorbacks, Arkansas State, right?
Oh no! These are Red Wolves, because Razorbacks. Because Arkansas State is Red Wolves, and the Razorbacks are University.
University. So okay, sorry, my bad. But like the teammates that you had, I can attest. Like there's some few sports that you have to create these relationships that are very strong because of the experiences that you have on that field. Because we don't even talk about this in high school, the dangers of playing contact sports, the dangers of knowing that you're doing this constant trauma to your head, constant trauma to your body. Now that I'm in my 30s, I feel my body like, oh yeah, from my shoulders to this to I know where this came from, because I put some miles on my body playing sports recklessly because I had the gift of youth, and but I remember the Sundays waking up after a rugby game and feeling like I don't want to leave this bed. It's rough. And only rugby players or football players or people that play contact boxers understand that pain. And if you're there and you're next to a person, it's like being in an army and surviving a war, kind of. So you kind of have a respect for them, especially if they have that so-called word that we use a lot, the heart. If they have the heart to withstand and be a good competitive teammate, and you have a different respect for them. So I definitely believe that the nature of that sport makes you guys very close. Even the people that you've played, you have a different respect for them. Like, it's not like soccer where I have animosity. We've left everything on the field. Like, if I wanted to hurt you, I could have hurt you by, either stiff arming, handing off, or whatever, or hitting you with a nice, tackle or something. But once that's done, it's done. And it's one of those weird gladiator sports where you just leave everything there. So the brotherhood, the bond, the sisterhood, if you're a female rugby player, I know you guys felt that when he said that on a different level, because I still have relationships and friendships with all my ex-teammates. We have a group message, and I mean, we play back days, and we think about going back on the field, but sometimes the body won't let you do that. But anyways, moving from that, so you said that you went to Arkansas to do your undergrad.
And there's a bit of both undergrad and masters there.
Oh, okay. I know you also did something in California. You went to school in California too.
That was the initial Santa Barbara thing that I was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. So then grad school is also here in California.
Okay.
So once I finished grad school, grad school. When I say grad school, I usually mean like my Ph.D. It was a different take, because you come from this whole process of it now becomes your project. It becomes more than a project. It becomes kind of like a livelihood, right? You're living on this really small stipend. But I think one of the things that was really important for me during that time was there's so many people leaving in front of you, right? Like, you come in the first year, and the people who have left at the end of the 5 years. You ask yourself, man, how has this guy done this for 5 years? And when you look one of the things that my PI, the principal investigator, the professor at the lab, did was that he had this on his door. He had all these recent publications, and you'd see the names of the people who have come before you and what work they've done, what journals they've published in, their awards. So there's always something for you to aspire to. So in terms of that, it was always really important to know that you have to kind of get onto this path, but you have to be patient, and that was for me was really critical during those times because it was 2014 when I began, and to have to go all the way to 2019. There's a lot that happened in between there. Seeing friends get married at home, seeing friends have their first kids. Man, I even missed my own family's, my brother's wedding, and things like that. So it's with that, but I don't have any regrets. That's, I think, the most important thing on my part. I don't have any regrets because I believe without having done grad school, especially for us with sciences, you're kind of at a disadvantage because you're always going to be pedal pushing for somebody. But with that additional 5 years, then you set yourself up for life. You're always going to be, the highest level of professional in your field. You're always going to be sought after. I had the privilege even when I was there. It came out this year, but I published something which is in the Journal of Physical Organic Chemistry, and it was made a cover, literally just a cover of the journal.
That's major, man.
Someone that was doing, thank you. Someone that was doing with this drug delivery for cancer treatment, and it was really important for me to know that was kind of like the pinnacle of my finishing, because there's always this one big paper in our group that you'd have, right? That would kind of like speak the volumes of what you've done. The previous person in my group was called Irina. She's from Moscow, and she had this. She had multitudes of papers too, but she also had one that stood out. I've also had some, and actually, my PA had the unfortunate event of losing his wife during my PhD. So he kind of cut short what I was doing, but he still allowed me to leave because I put manuscripts on his table and things like that. But now we're kind of like seeing the fruits of my work after I've left him, keep in contact with him so that we can get these published for my benefit and his, because it builds up my reason. But it's also, he became kind of like a person. He comes from being your mentor to someone to talk to. We now reason on a different level, different from the first day.
Right. I mean, yeah, like even that journey, like you were saying, when you see the rest of the world moving on, and while you still, you have your tunnel vision, you have your blinders on, and trying to stay focused so you can finish your race, which is getting this certification or accomplishing your career dreams, so you could secure your future. I mean, it's commendable, because sometimes a lot of people lose track in that race, in that journey, and some people fold and break, and some people just use that as I'll come back and revisit those times, and we can come back and people get married every day, people have kids every day. Some of these things have to happen on their own time. So yeah, and mentorship is a key thing. We all need mentorship in whatever we do. If we don't have a mentor, if you don't have a mentor in life, anybody that's listening to this, find someone to mentor you. You're never too young, you're never too old for a mentor. Like, even if there are an active mentor or a mentor based off just you viewing them and studying them and examining them, or observing what they do and absorbing what they do and implementing what they do, that's your mentor. So we all need that. So now let's talk about, we already talked about the work. We talked about your journey as a Ugandan trying to integrate into the American college life, and later on becoming what you are right now. Let's talk about some of the people that influenced you, some of the people that well your you talked about one of your mentors, but just people that helped you throughout this journey to being you. Be
Okay.
people that know that they are, or people that even don't know that they are your
Uh,
influences.
yeah. Um, you know, on on a personal level, and some people, we all look at it as like sports and things, right? But I always like to look deeper than sports, right? So there are few mentors that I have in sports that I kind of look at and I say, you know what, these people are people who, you know, they kind of make people's lives be without knowing it, right? So mine is actually Jamie Vardy. Um, so when I look at Jamie Vardy's career, I kind of relate it to people's lives.
You may
People
want
have dreams.
you may want to
Yeah.
explain to my especially my American audience who Jamie Vardy is. I know who Jamie Vardy is, but
Okay.
explain that
So
process, his
Jamie,
process to what he is right now.
okay. Jamie Vardy is this player um, who was he plays for Leicester City right now, which is an English Premier League club. And if you look at his journey, it is not even 5 years where he started. He was still kind of doing odd end jobs and trying to make ends meet by doing these odd end jobs and working part time while playing football. And within a space of that time, this guy was able to come in, grow from all these divisions, from the second division to the first division, and then to the Premiership, and win the Premiership, be the top scorer, and then go on to play for England in a very short uh, time, which for me shows just huge, huge levels of growth. It shows huge levels of mental capacity because he wasn't this hyped player that grew up knowing that he'd be a star. But he's one of these players who pulled himself up by the straps and said, you know what, even though I'm older in life, even though things don't seem to be, even though I have to do what I have to do, I will get there. And for me, that's I mean, of course, I'm a Manchester United fan, and of course that still makes me in. But then you tend to look at people, you take away all that all the noise, right? And you look for those individuals who said, you know what, regardless of what the world throws at me, I'm going to get to where I'm going. Now, and in my real life, um, the people who have aspired to be, or who have kind of like forged a path for me, who I look up to. One of them is my grandpa. My grandpa is actually really old. He's past 100. I saw him a couple of years
Oh
ago.
wow,
Yeah,
wow.
I saw him a couple of years ago, and he was like, I remember we were talking to him, and he said, I'm now 103, but I'm not going to be growing anymore. I'm going to start when I turn 104. I'll be giving you guys extra years. So he still has that sense of humor, and he's still that person who, you know, who 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 he impacted my life in ways he doesn't know. Because whenever I talk to my folks at home, especially my mom, he would ask about me. He'd be like, like, how is he? So every time I knew that I had a backing of the family, I knew that that patriarch who was there was expecting things from me. In an African setting, when you have people expecting things from you, of course, your family, my parents, of course, those are people who kept pushing me, who kept encouraging me. But I think I expected that because that's what they've done all their lives, and done for my siblings too. But to see that, this grandpa who has multitudes of of grandchildren. Because with my mom, they were 12, 11, because some people passed on and things. But he'd still ask about me, meaning that out of all the magnitudes of grandkids, he'd still say, "How's that guy doing in the US?" Like, you know, he's supposed to be this strong boy. He gave me and Paco a more. So he, without knowing, he had that huge influence in me because every time I would see, I was like, God has blessed this guy to get to where he's going to live for this long, and he's given him this life, and and he keeps trying to know what you're doing. Oh, he's there for a reason. So you kind of like want to aspire to give him what to be proud of. That
Absolutely. I mean, that's well said. And to the listeners, an Impako with Runyoro, I believe Rutoro too. It's like a pet name that all of them start with A's. All of them. So I also have one because I'm from the same tribe. I'm a Matoro, but we are derivative of Bunyoro Kitara. So Bunyoro Kitara is this. We will be diving into history if we get into that. To my Ugandan listeners, they already know what the deal is because people forget that Africa is not just countries. Africa is a continent of tribes. Before the partitioning of Africa, when Europeans came in and divided land, we were just tribes. Some tribes were nomads and they just moved around. Even before the tribes, we had another derivative, which was either your Bantu or your Nilotic, or it gets deep. So yeah, he just gave you a little bit of that when he said Impako. So that has been a gem for this podcast. We've not had anyone dive into African traditional stuff, especially Ugandans, traditional nuance. But with that being said, you're blessed to have a figure like your grandfather, and I could tell you said you grew up in a patriarch setting, so I could tell he was the man. He was the man there. He was the man. So
every time they address him, they say Omunyo.
One interesting thing, most patriarch families that are like, because my grandfather had 21 kids. True story. I just wonder, and I've never asked him this. He passed away a few years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 2012. Yeah, 8 years ago. I wonder if he remembers all his grandkids' names. Like, that would be interesting. I mean, he knew my name, and I feel like he knew everyone's name. And that's something I find amazing. You have 21 kids. How many grandkids are you going to have then? You're just imagining. I find it hard remembering colleagues' names. I find it hard remembering all classmates' names. Imagine, but it's a different type of urgency when it's your kids, I guess, to memorize. What would you think about that whole picture? I mean, coming from that background of having a patriarch figure in your family, like remembering everyone, and he's reaching out to you in particular through your mom, like, how is that guy doing? That's very amazing, right? It's a good story right there.
It's very deep, man. Like it's very deep, especially. I got to see him a few times. Even in my last trip, I did see him.
Yeah.
When someone like that, who demands that respect, and so you can see it's kind of like in the evening of their life, right? He's had many achievements as a person. Of course, the achievements for him. When I say achievements, people think that our achievements now are the same as the achievements of our parents or the parents before them. No. For him, probably it was a time when it was a lot harder to put food on the table. It was a lot harder, to hold up jobs and things like that because they used to pay them peanuts.
Yeah.
But he came through that. He raised his family. He took all, my moms and all those guys, my aunties and stuff to school. So it's to see that he had that value for education, right? And to see that when I look at all his daughters, because he had majority daughters, when I look at all those aunties of mine, I see that all of them they have made it in everything that they've done. And that has to come from somewhere. And to see that that same person who nurtured these people is asking about you, so it's really important. But I mean, another person I wanted to bring into this upon the same lines was a professor that I met in Arkansas. He's called. He's the reason I believe I became who I am in the science field because he's the one who put me in the lab. Uh, hello?
I'm here. Keep going.
Sure.
I'm here. Just
Okay.
keep going. I just had to turn something off.
Okay.
I'm here.
So I was gonna say he's the one who put me in a lab, and he's the first person. I had my first publication with him, and I feel like it would be really unfair not to mention him. He's called Dr. Shim Ali. He he was one of those people. I remember the first day I entered his class of physical organic chemistry. He was one of those people who had this thick African accent. And so I enter his class and he's teaching, right? But I can notice like this guy's either. So I put it together because I knew, like when we play like those games, he doesn't speak English. So when he stopped lecturing, I told him, I think you're from Kenya. It's like, how did you know? And so he's actually a very good friend now, but he became a mentor to me. And he's the one who told me, what, Ronnie, why? I had this whole idea of, I just finished working undergrad or things like that and just go straight into, finish school and then just go straight into work. He was like, but you're still young. Like, why are you trying to do that? And then he made me aspire to be more because he saw things in me and he took me to conferences, he took me to my first ACS, which is American Chemical Society meeting. He put me in a publication. He guided me through my applications for grad school. So he opened up a world for me that I didn't even know existed. So I'm 100% sure if it hadn't been for his eyes and what he saw in me and my abilities,
Yeah. Man, salute to him too. That's amazing having these figures in your life, and I mean, you turned out amazing as a person, and I believe a lot of the things that we do, our vocation, our careers, we are all put in this world to serve, meaning to help. It's never about me. It's about how can I use this air that I breathe, this blood in my veins or whatever, to help another person or just help humankind. It shouldn't only just be your people, but it could be the person who's next door, and you sitting down in your lab, going through your procedures to find the right medication or right vaccination, um, to put out there in the market is an amazing thing, and we appreciate you for that. And we also appreciate your mentors. People are telling me I need to enunciate a little bit better because sometimes I drag my words. But your mentors, who helped you, in your process along the way. They are the reason that you are who you are, and they're the reasons why you're doing an amazing job in what you're doing. So we want to salute them. So we're going to this point of the episode or the show where we are almost concluding it. So we usually ask the guest a few things. So what was the last book you read?
The last full book I read was actually the autobiography of Alex Ferguson. Like that, it's a book that I read on a flight home, and I read it, and it was really interesting. It showed a different side of the human being. It's in each of those different chapters and things, you read about him and you see what his values were, and you see why. There's a part of it that shows his exercise that he does in the morning, like he wake up, be at Carrington before it's like 7 a.m. every day, the whole time you've been there. He knew the person at the reception. He talks about the lady who was at the reception every time. It's the same lady who has been there for years. Right? He talks about the people in the cafeteria. He talks about the gate man. And this is a person who I mean, we don't have to talk about who Sir Alex Ferguson is. I'm sure if anyone Googles, they can find out, and how important he is in sports. But yeah, that was a book that I read that kind of inspired me. It kind of moves it.
And that's one book I'm yet to read, but I heard that. I mean, I heard about the extracts from the book, of course, when he talks about David Beckham, his potential,
Yeah.
and their relationship, and how he felt like, you know, he was becoming more of a brand than a footballer, and their blowout, the famous throwing the boot story,
Yeah.
after that game, and to you
Pizza
know.
Gate.
Yeah, the pizza with Fabregas who threw the pizza after Arsenal got beat. I mean, they had just had their 49 undefeated just closed by, you know, a horrible game, a horrible referee. You know, Jose Antonio Reyes was being kicked by, like, what's his name? Phil Neville, Gary Neville, one of the Neville brothers.
I think it was Phil.
Yeah, just messing up Jose Antonio Reyes, and nobody, Jose, R.I.P. to the great. But like, just knowing who this figure is, especially people that watch the English Premier League, Ferguson, Fergie, or whatever they call him. I have to say it in that condescending way, because I know he's one of the greatest coaches. I have to put respect on his name, but I have to also be condescending.
Yeah.
He's one of the most winning managers in any sport. He's one of the people that switched a franchise and made a club actually multi-billionaire type of status through its branding all over the world, of course, and just through its attractive football or soccer. And he's also known, when I was a kid, I just knew him for just chewing gum.
Yeah. He malted. He had even special gum. If you read in the book, right? Like, he had special gum that he chewed, and like it talked about these like, I think they're like sticks and things, and he had have them in his pocket.
Right.
And sometimes he would have them in multiple pockets.
Yeah.
To talk. It's really, really interesting to like know this guy, just kind of know his life.
Yeah. What was the last music album you listened to, or that one that you'd want to recommend people to check out, if you have any, share?
I haven't been listening to music that much. I have to be honest, because my lifestyle and how it has changed. I mean, I still like music. I'll listen to what's on the radio, but these days, and that's something I fall short of. I can't say that there's an album in particular that I've listened to.
I mean, it could be it could be an oldie. It could be something that you just have to revisit if you're in the gym, if you're taking a long trip, if you're driving like for hours. Something that you know is definitely something that you're not skipping any songs on.
Oh, Get Rich or Die Trying. That has to be it. Yeah. When I think about
that's a classic.
Yeah. When I think about something like that, there's 21 questions. When I listen to that, I remember everything that at that time 50 was really good. It was kind of like coming out and stuff like that. We had songs with him and Dre, Eminem. So I'd say that's one of those albums that practically, I don't even think, when you're kind of deleting things on your computer, right? That's one album that has always made it from every computer that I've had, because I had it there.
Yeah, but Ronnie, didn't you
for some reason have this sentimental attachment?
Yeah, didn't you used to like listen to Coldplay? Yeah. You listened to Coldplay, right? Or it was not you that year, you probably, because I remember like your cousin Howard used to listen to Coldplay.
Maybe Howard. But Howard was a lot more into music than me.
Yeah, Howard is. Coldplay was my group, man. I used to like Coldplay. I mean, I listened to Clocks. I remember when they did the whole thing with Jay-Z where they redid each other's songs. I mean, am I confusing them with Linkin Park? Maybe I am. Somebody's gonna correct me somehow when they listen to this. They'll just put it in the comments somewhere. All right. So now that we're concluding this episode, we ask our guest, what is the ultimate lesson learned along your way?
I think the ultimate lesson learned for me is trusting the process. I have to say it because it, I see the path that all people have, because we all have different paths, right? Not everyone's going to be, we all have to take our own paths in life, right? And especially right now, it's very easy to think that, whatever path you have is cut short. My lesson I've learned, the ultimate lesson is staying the course. And there's always going to be, challenges. It's always going to be a bumpy ride. But if you know what you want and done, first of all, you need to first do research or kind of inquire through mentors, different people, to have something that you want. No, I may say it's a profession, but it could also be like, you want to be a sportsman, or you want to have a certain profession or something like that. First of all, you always want to inquire and see what the pathway is. But when you get on that path, stay the course. Because with, the new millennium thing where things are going to easily be handed to you and things like that, that's not how the real world works. So that for me is the ultimate message that I have for everyone who's listening in and watching this, is stay the path, trust the process, because the fruits of that, you don't only get to where you're going, but you also molded into a human being who appreciates the process and can pass that on to others.
Message right there. Nice. I like that. Stay the course, trust the process. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another great episode of Lessons Learned Along the Way with another special guest, Dr. Ronnie Ruyonga. Thank you for sitting down with us virtually and sharing your story and hopefully inspiring a lot of the people listening, the people watching this episode, because you do a lot of great things, and we celebrate you and we thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you. And always a pleasure talking to you. And of course, I know that you're going to be doing these great things too. So I'm also on the lookout every time you're looking for the podcast, looking at all these invites and these exciting guests who come here. So all these different people, man. So it's mind blowing. And also to say to you that, man, just stay the path, man. This is exciting. As soon as I heard you were doing this, I couldn't wait to be on this.
Absolutely, that's the goal, and I'm also learning from my guests. I definitely need to I need to trust the process, stay the course, and just know my pathway. And just like that, we concluded our lessons learned episode with Dr. Ronnie Ruyonga, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys liking on YouTube and subscribing to the channel. And hopefully you guys are listening to it on any platform, be it Spotify, be it Apple Podcast, and enjoying it. If you're not enjoying it, let me know. Positive feedback, negative feedback is all feedback. We aim to improve. Just like that, we are out. Thank you.